Hey everyone, welcome to Beers FPL. Get it right as usual. And we've had a couple of weeks off with some kind of major drama over the past couple of weeks, I would say. So we're going to talk about Game Week 23, plans going forward. Danny's got some extensive transfer plans as always, so we're good to talk about that. We'll probably stretch to Game Week 25 with the blank, and we'll have a look at how we're going to navigate that. Maybe briefly touch on sort of chip strategy. I think we've got a bit of a chat about what you're going to be doing. And yeah, so if you haven't followed us already on Beers FPL on Twitter, that's at Beers FPL, please do it.
Yeah, welcome back to YouTube. Thanks for checking out the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, and has any comments, any chat, tell us we're shit, tell us we're good. And I don't know, we're allowed to swear on this. I just realised we are going to talk about, first off, is how we got on Game Week 22. I have had a fairly middling week. Danny will tell you he's had a terrible week, but in reality, he's had a pretty good one. So quickly talk through your team. How are you getting on? How many have you got left to play? What's happening?
Yeah, so we let you know we're recording this ahead of the United and Leeds game tonight. So these three players are still to play. I kind of thought I had a bad week, but it's not really on the grand scheme of things, as you've sort of reassured me this week. I think it's because I've had so many green arrows and I've been doing so well, and I've had 2 red in a row now. But it's not been catastrophic. I'm still in the top 10k, just hovering underneath and inside the top 7k. I was just disappointed with some of my punts. Like, I done a -4 to get Mudryk in. I don't know if that was just me being a Chelsea fan, was just super excited by him, and I thought Chelsea were going to bring it all together and smash Fulham on Friday night, and they definitely didn't. And obviously we didn't know that Mudryk was suffering from a cold, so he came off. So that was disappointing. Tony disappointing, but the 3 United boys, who everyone seems to own, got me some points. Kepa again, clean sheet and bonus points, and then the ever consistent Harry Kane. So yeah, it's higher than average. Obviously, I just feel like I could have been doing a bit better. There's a lot of players around me in my leagues or in the overall ranking that I've got Rashford triple captain. They've got the likes of Mitoma, Brentford defenders, just some players that I don't have. So I've been seeing a lot of scores that are sort of like in the 80s, 90, heading towards 100 club this week. So that's why I was kind of like, rubbish week. But on the grand scheme of things, it's actually been going pretty well. So,
Yeah, I think you spoke a little bit about the idea that you felt a bit distraught this week, that you may be losing a little ground, but still getting an amazing rank, and still got 3 to play, so not too bad. I'm kind of praying that Shaw doesn't start tonight. Would benefit me.
I need him.
And yeah, well, we both obviously have Rashford captain, but we're a bit worried about the old triple captain Rashford, so kind of hope he doesn't do too many bits tonight. But we'll see what happens. So yeah, my team, another fairly middling week. I just feel like we're trundling along at the minute. Sitting at 58, not got way down there. Not got too much. I've got. I'm hoping Nonto does something. I can't really see it. There was a bit of a punt that's maybe not paid off. I wasn't expecting Leeds to go into full crisis mode at the minute. But getting Mitoma in finally. I did debate with myself whether to go for my boy March, but I think your advice over the past couple of weeks and chatting about him and your enthusiasm for him definitely helped push me over the edge for it. So I appreciate your help on that one. And yeah, De Bruyne disappointing. Trippier disappointing. White again disappointing. Andy Robertson, I don't know what I was thinking, trying to be a bit different. I mean, that might pay off going forward as they've got double game weeks coming up. But yeah, Liverpool just do not look good at all at the minute, and neither do City really. So yeah, another bit disappointing week. I'm glad the Man United picks seem to do well, but I'm going to have to look at maybe transferring out Martinelli and stuff in the near future, and trying to firefight a little with that bench. Mitro obviously is good, but Leicester are just absolutely nowhere, and Villa having a shocker as well. So we'll see what happens. What are your transfer plans then? I think we'll go into you because I feel like you've been wrestling with this, so you've got some exciting planning set up and stuff. What's your What's your plans then going forward?
You can
for
tell
20?
I'm excited, and I'm just. I think I don't know if it's just I'm overthinking a little bit because I feel like I've lost a little bit of ground. Like it's not even been that bad the last couple of weeks. Like my overall rank, I'm still doing all right in my mini leagues, but I'm just this. So if we're looking at my team right now, this is like my bus team. Like if I was to get hit by a bus, this is my team, right? So I look at it and first glance, you're kind of like, that's pretty good. That's a solid 5-man midfield. You've got the 2 top scoring players in the game up front. Good idea to bench Tony away to Arsenal. Potential for clean sheets from all of these players, but it just doesn't scream solid and reliable for loads of reasons. So Ben White and Martinelli are now giving me problems because Tomiyasu and Trossard are now there. Is a possibility that Arteta sort of rotates the squad a little bit ahead of the big Man City game. I'm just not convinced that I'm going to get 90 minutes from White and Martinelli. One of them might get benched. I'm just not confident about that at all. And then the next fixture City, obviously, which could be quite difficult. So I don't like my 2 Arsenal assets. Mudryk is a bit of a wait and see. I know he came off with the cold. He's been training, I've been seeing all week, so that could indicate that he's better now. Is he going to start? I would hope so. I'd assume so. But he's a slight problem. Andreas, I just don't really want to be starting. Perraud doesn't start every week. Bueno didn't start last week. So there's little fires. There's no like big major red fires like players out injured or still holding on to Cancelo or somebody owning Doherty. It's not bad. So like everyone else just now, like the priority I think is at least getting triple Arsenal, and we can obviously discuss what we think the best triple Arsenal is, like in an ideal world. And me having these 2, it's just not looking good. Like I'd really want to have either Zinchenko, Gabriel, or Saliba over White. Probably Zinchenko. My first choice would be Saka, then either Odegaard or Nketiah. I feel like Nketiah is still quite low owned, so I'm quite keen to maybe squeeze him in. And then do I want to go for a second City asset? I can't get to 3 Arsenal, 3 Man City unless I take a 8-point hit, which I don't really want to do, or wild card.
Before we kind of launch in, because I think we're going to have to talk about City and Arsenal. It's going to be quite an important thing over the next game week. Is there any other plans in particular with different players you're looking at taking out that maybe aren't City and Arsenal related? Because I think we're probably going to have to talk about that. Are you happy? Obviously, we spoke about Mudryk, which is, I think, definitely a wait and see. I think he'll come good. I feel like Chelsea are going to pop at some point, and you're in the right position by having him early. As a bit of a gamble, it was always going to be a bit of a gamble, but I think it could still pay off. So it's worth, it could be a real differential for you. What's your plans with, you've got Kane sitting there. Are you quite content with him? You happy? Mr. Reliable. Keeps getting returns, even the fact that Spurs haven't been amazing despite the result of the weekend. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, Kane's staying. I think I decided that like at the World Cup break was when I made my decision to bring him into my squad. Post then, I was like, I'm keeping him for the foreseeable. He's going to be my second premium. I just didn't trust De Bruyne. I didn't trust Salah as a long-term hold, and he's consistent. And Spurs have got some good fixtures coming up. So why would I not want him? He's always playing. He's returning. So he is definitely staying.
We spoke just around Christmas time. I think we both spoke about wanting Kane for the upcoming run. It was just obviously the form of Spurs that we were a bit nervous about. So I think you made the right decision in getting him in and keeping him there, because it just sets you up for a good stead. You've got those players in place that you don't need to worry about. You mentioned your little fires. It's good to see that Kane's not going to be one of them. And also you've got Kepa, the wonder keeper, who keeps returning, raging a bit. I think you've got a solid shape there, but it's bringing us on to the next topic of conversation, which we're really going to have to embrace, which is the triple Arsenal, triple City. So before we go into the Arsenal, because I feel like that's the juicy part that we're going to have kind of fun talking about, let's engage City. How we thinking a very, very different team from prospect from what they were even 2 months ago, I would say. Nobody really looking great you know, Mahrez, Foden, the traditional picks out with sort of KDB and our boy Haaland. What's your thoughts? I mean, I'm mildly nervous to go triple six. If we get the team of old that Pep can bring out, you know, we still expect him to do something interesting. There is a really worry that he's been even less consistent with his team picks this season, as we've seen. And he seems to be, I wouldn't say unhappy, but I mean, all the controversy as well surrounding them out with the football park, that's going to possibly be causing them problems as well. So what's your thoughts? Like, I think Dublin might be my best bet. I'm not 100% convinced I'm going to go triple, even though
beyond Dublin.
It's worrying. I'm really nervous about giving over that, you know, going for the triple, because if one doesn't play, you're only getting a single game anyway. So what's the point, you know? It's an interesting one. I think I'm far more comfortable with Arsenal, but City are really beginning to give me a little bit of fear, to be honest.
Yeah, same, man. So like the other thing is trying to think about, is it worth taking hits for them? Because I think most managers, including myself, if you're going to be using free transfers, it's going to be to prioritise Arsenal. So for me, I would want to try and get, if I've got Martinelli and White, you'd want to try and get in Saka or whatever. With that would leave you then, if you want to bring in Mahrez or De Bruyne or whoever, it's for a -4, and that's what I'm really struggling with. Like, I just don't trust any of the midfielders. A really obvious transfer a lot of people will be doing that we've done last week is just reversing it, the Bruno to De Bruyne. Well, they just done De Bruyne to Bruno, so do that backwards. I don't mind that because he didn't play against Tottenham. A lot of people are sort of calling that a rest. I don't see it as a rest. I don't think he's played enough football to need a rest. I feel like his form's just been off, and so is Man City's form, and Pep's just tinkering with different ideas and different formations, and it didn't pay off. So I think De Bruyne is your Haaland's picked himself. I think De Bruyne's your second pick for that, because I think he's going to start these 2 games. They need him for these 2 games. It's just his price point and his form this season that really still puts me off. Like, I fell out with him for captaining him a couple of weeks ago, and I'm only getting me 12 points. That's why I transferred him out for Fernandes last week, and I'm struggling to convince myself to bring him back in. So then you think about Mahrez. His form's been brilliant. He's much cheaper, but he got taken off at half-time against Spurs. Was Pep not seen enough from him? We never know the answers to these questions. Was Pep not seen enough from him? Was it a tactical change to try and get City back into the game? What's going on there? Like you said, like you could bring in one of these City midfielders and you only play one of the games anyway. So you're targeting a double game week player that's going to give you same single game week returns. So it's our defence is the only. I think if I was going to double, which I've looked at through -4s, -8s, I've also mucked about with wildcards, and I'm happy with looking at defenders. I think Ake would be my first pick. I just think he's solid there to cover the left back position. He can cover the left centre back. He can come up with the odd goal. Akanji, I'm just not 100% on, because Laporte and Diaz are fit as well. And then a lot of people are going for Lewis. Like, I would only really be considering Lewis if I was on a budget. I don't know. It's really tough to kind of like hit the nail on the head with City just now. I think if I was picking players outside of Haaland, De Bruyne reluctantly would be my first pick, and then Ake. I think I just don't fully trust Mahrez. Grealish, a lot of people are talking about being nailed now, but I just don't think he's got the explosiveness to get you goals and assists.
Well, that was the point I was wanting to make. I feel like Foden still being injured, I think, as anybody on that left-hand side really going to be challenging Grealish. So Grealish is maybe slightly more settled, but like you say, is Grealish going to get you the points? You know, is he going to get what you need? Particularly, I mean, Aston Villa, fair enough, but particularly against Arsenal. I mean, I'm already worried about the Arsenal fixture anyway, because it's going to be, well, who knows? I mean, it might be a mental game. It might be like the Man United game all over again, but you have a feeling like that's a cagey game, because it essentially is, I wouldn't say title winning, but it's almost getting that title pressure on these 2 teams, even at this stage of the season. So you imagine it's going to be a cagey game. I think I say this now, and it's going to end up like 5-4 or something. But I imagine it will be a low-scoring game, which means that your shout about maybe defenders is slightly smarter because you've got an opportunity that there might be some, possibly clean sheets. But I mean, I'm not going to say it's 0-0 it's going to finish, but it's interesting. I do worry that we make those changes and bring them in, and that A, the player doesn't play, or B, it's a cagey game and a very low scoring point wise for both teams anyway. Do you know what I mean? So it is worrying. It's one of those things I think we really need to look out for. Grealish, I'm interested in. Mahrez, I think, is another shout, but and then defensively, yeah, Ake definitely. But I don't feel it. I feel really uncomfortable about it, and it's a surefire. And like, what's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? Am I going to get punished for not having certain players? Probably not, because everybody else is in the same boat. So, that people will be taking -4s to get them in, and they might play one game, so you might actually benefit from not bringing them in. So, yeah, I think I'll stick to the double up, which I already have, and I'll probably focus on Arsenal for this double game week, because I just don't feel comfortable at all with how City are at the minute in terms of rotation, form, scoring players. It just doesn't sit well with me at all.
And even like you're saying about Foden, like Grealish seems to be nailed on in that spot, but Foden's just got an illness, so he could come back this week or next week. And then say you transfer in Grealish, then you've got Grealish in there, but Foden's back, and are you going to have a problem in a couple of weeks with Grealish not starting? And I think that's the same way with Mahrez. Like, I don't know if I want to take a hit in my team to bring a player in that I'm not wanting to keep for a long time, or the decision might be taken out of my hands. Like, so I could be like, yeah, brilliant, Mahrez, and then he does play one of the games or both of them and does really well for me, but then Pep leaves him out next week, and then you're like, I've got this problem. So I just don't want that. The only one I would feel quite comfortable with, I think, is De Bruyne. I think these benchings he's had recently, I wouldn't read too much into him. I think he's going to come back. He's going to get the form. It's just for me, it's the sort of price point. So they're difficult.
It's an excellent point you made as well about the future-proofing aspect. I know we spoke briefly about the effect that, trying to think too far ahead can have on your short-term decisions. I know that you struggled recently with just that problem, but it does work a little bit in reverse, whereby, if you do transfer these players in, are you going to want to keep them? Are City going to turn the corner? Or, are we going to have players playing for City that are going to be settled and ready to go? And you just don't know. They do have a semi-decent fixture run. They've got Nottingham Forest next, then Bournemouth, but even that Nottingham Forest game isn't going to be as comfortable as maybe what it would have been previously, especially away. And Bournemouth as well, like, it's not guaranteed that they're going to be going in there all firing. So yeah, it's a really important point, and I think it's probably something that I'll avoid anyway. I think doubling up's probably the safest bet. At least you're covering then, and then if anything happens, is it going to cost you that much? Not really convinced, to be honest.
Yeah,
because I mean, are you going to be captaining these players as well? I mean, are you really want to captain anybody other than Haaland in that City team? I really don't think so. Most of us already have Haaland, so what's the play there?
Yeah, I would think the decision out of this is like avoid the midfielders, and unless it's a free transfer, like a luxury transfer. You've already got 3 Arsenal players that you're settled on. You've got Haaland. Some people have got Ake or Akanji because they transferred them in for Cancelo last week. So if you've got that one free transfer and you're looking to get that extra double game week player, and it's midfield, Mahrez or De Bruyne. But for me personally, like, my 3 transfers are going to shore up my Arsenal assets. And if I want to go to City, it's going to be a -4 or a wild card. And that's where you need to start thinking about it. Is it worth it? And I don't think it is.
Cool. So moving on to a slightly more sexier point is, the triple attack in Arsenal. I think everybody's kind of looking that way, like trying to get in, like you've already mentioned, the 3 players that everybody's kind of keen on: Saka, Odegaard, and Nketiah. I know it's going to be quite template, but if you don't have these players in, all that's going to happen is you're going to be punished, surely, if they, do what they've been doing all season and start to bang in the goals. The Brentford fixture is a tough one. The City fixture is undoubtedly a tough one, but as they've shown in previous games against teams like Man United and stuff like that, they're more than capable of playing well and scoring goals. So what's your thoughts there? I know you've already briefly mentioned that you're wanting to maybe switch to bring in sort of Saka as your top priority with Ode maybe being secondary, but is Nketiah there as well? What's your thoughts? What's your play? How are you looking at it?
I think, yeah, undoubtedly Saka and Odegaard are the two, like, no-brainers. With Saka still being on penalties, we assume. I know Jorginho's there now, but I don't think they would take him off Saka. He's not got a bad record or anything. Odegaard, we know what he's like. Nketiah, I think I kind of want him. I think, like, if I'm going to start making some moves, I would go for Saka and then maybe Nketiah and just take another chance not owning Odegaard, even though he keeps burning me. But I feel like Nketiah is a bit of a differential. He technically is. He's still under 10%. So he's playing so well. His underlying stats tend to be, I think they're the best out of all of them since the World Cup. And he's so cheap. So I really want him. The only thing that, when I keep tinkering, it's putting me off is the fact that Gabriel Jesus is back in training. And some people are sort of thinking he can come back around 25, 26. So again, it's about balancing, not thinking too far ahead, but then not wanting to take hits or waste transfers on players that might not be in your thinking in a few weeks. However, I don't think that's really the case with Nketiah. I think whenever Jesus does come back, he's not going to come in straight away. Nketiah is still going to be playing. He's going to get minutes. Nketiah has played wide before. Jesus has played wide. It just gives Arteta more options. I don't think it's going to end Nketiah as an FPL option. So I think he's still safe. So those are the three obvious ones. Unfortunately, now Martinelli's is completely off the radar for everyone. He's getting sold because of Trossard and a bit of poor form. I'm going to hold him though, because I think out of the two games, he's probably still going to get maybe 120 minutes. He might start both and get taken off early, or he might start one and then come on in the second half, like whatever. I think he's still a decent asset to have. If you got him, hold him. Obviously not buy him. And then any one of these three defenders, like, question back to you, like, then do you think if you were starting from scratch, if you're on a wild card, right, which some people are, would you go to three attackers or would you go 2 and 1 and invest in that defence? Because we know the Arsenal defence has been so good this season and they've got reasonably good fixtures coming up. I know they've got a couple of toughies. Or they don't really. I thought they had Newcastle coming up, but apart from Man City, like, there's a lot of clean sheet potential in there. So I think 2 attackers and 1 defence is probably a good way to spread it out. But I see a lot of people are going the other way with 2 midfielders plus Nketiah.
I think the problem is, like you say, Nketiah, it's whether Nketiah continues to start, which I think he should in his form. Obviously, with Jesus coming back could be a slight problem. Martinelli dropping off in form is probably quite a big worry. I think with the defenders, you've got a more settled option, and like you say, with the clean sheets and stuff like that, so it's probably a smart play, I would say. The only problem I would have is what defenders you're looking at. You know, we both spoke about White maybe not performing to the level we like in the past couple of games. So is it Saliba, who did really well for me last season, got the occasional goal as well, or do you go for, you know, somebody like Zinchenko, who is playing forward again? Realistically, what you really need is somebody who's going to get you the attacking returns, so as well as a clean sheet to really like pump it up. So I think the three that are there are probably your best options. As sad as it is for me to say, because I have White in my team and you have White in your team, but I think it's interesting. But I think you can't afford not to have. I know that blip at the weekend was pretty bad, you know, but that was new manager bounce and the Dyche ball coming into effect. But going forward, I think that won't probably be the case. The only worry I would say is it's likely that both Brentford and City will score against Arsenal. You know, Brentford are pretty punchy when it comes to the attack. You know, Buemo, Tony, Wissa, players like that are more than likely going to get them a goal. So I reckon Arsenal maybe win 2-3-1, and then you get into the City game. And let's be honest, anything could happen. You know, it could be 3-2, 4-2, 5-4. You know, it could be 1-0, it could be 1 each. You just don't know how it's going to play out. So in the short term, I'd be nervous about the defence. But like you say, those fixtures going forward, I definitely think it's probably a smart play to try and include somebody like Zinchenko, or I would say Saliba, in your defence. It's probably the smartest way to go about things, because I think Arsenal going forward now, form-wise, look like the team that might be the most consistent, and that's kind of really what you want when it comes to game week points, essentially. Is there a danger, do you think, that if we are, like a lot of people concentrating on these double game weeks and trying to get City and Arsenal players in, is there a danger that you miss out on perhaps some of the other games that are happening, whereby you might be able to get another player in, say like a Newcastle player if they're playing up against Bournemouth, or even Nottingham Forest, who are turned the corner a wee bit and playing really well? They're going up against Fulham, or even maybe not so much Everton, but an Everton defender possibly. Like, is there points to be had elsewhere outside the double game week? Are people maybe, is that a bit criminal to focus on that transfer wise, or should we only be looking at that?
No, you're right. You shouldn't focus solely on the double game week. I think the fact that most of us is the attraction to the players that you've got in a double game week. Like, it's the two best teams in the league. I know they're playing each other, but like you've said as well, there is that potential for that game to just be fireworks and there be goals. So that's why you can't get away from it. Like, these players, they've got such good form recently in Man City, some of them, and mostly in Arsenal. So it's hard to not deviate away from that when you see those two fixtures, and especially with Arsenal, they've got another double game week in 2 weeks. So you're getting 5 games in 3 game weeks from Arsenal. So that is a top priority, I think, regardless of who else is scoring goals. But yeah, like, that's why I just brought this up. Like, players like Mitoma can't be really ignored. I know that there's a blank in 25 for them, but if you kind of manage the rest of your team, then I would still be trying to target him if you've got a free transfer. So I find it hard though. I've always done this with double game weeks. I tend to just be like, just put all the energy into just getting the right mix of them and the right players. And then if it goes tits up, then just deal with that afterwards and try and figure out the team. But recently, I've definitely been kind of hazed by the blank game week and the doubles. And that's what I've been just focusing on, getting Man United for this week, getting Arsenal and City for next week, avoiding Mitoma because he's got one blank and stuff. And it's had mixed results. But I think
so I was just going to say, should you then be worried at Mitoma because he's got Crystal Palace, which is arguably a good game, getting into Fulham, which is another good game. So like we've just talked about, and what we should probably do is go on and talk a lot about how we're going to navigate this game week 25, but how, you spoke briefly about maybe future planning too much has affected you in the short term. What's your thinking now? Are you annoyed about the fact that you didn't maybe bring in Mitoma because of that? And what would your advice be to people who are maybe looking at it thinking, really letting the 25 and 28 sort of game weeks really sharpen their focus? What would you say to them?
That's what I would say. So Mitoma specifically, like, we've been talking about him for weeks, and I feel like there was opportunities there to be bringing him in for an out-of-form Almiron. I was sort of just dealing with different things, wanting to try and navigate the double game weeks. Had there not been double game weeks, Mitoma would have been in both of our squads weeks ago. I think that's the case for a lot of managers. For this week, like, I feel it's the same as I've kind of already said. Like, if you've already got your Arsenal players already set and you're happy with them, and you've got a free transfer, and another caveat is, and you're not too heavy loaded on Man United and Newcastle players, which you probably will be, then bring in Mitoma. So I feel like all of those things I've just said, people are going to either have that, they're going to be focusing on Arsenal or Man City. They're going to have other players that are blanking in 25 that you're going to want to get rid of. So you don't want to be bringing another one in, I don't think. If I was on wildcard, I probably would pick him. I would prioritise him and then just minimise my other blanking players, like not include Shaw, only have Rashford from United, only have Trippier from Newcastle, and then you could bench Mitoma, Trippier and Rashford in 25. But I think if you're not going to free hit in 25 and you're just doing your free transfers just now, it's hard. It's a hard argument to like say buy him now. Plus, we might have missed his purple patch. Like, these numbers are screaming Almiron, like September, October Almiron.
Touch wood right now. Take that back before you even start.
Forgetting you're an owner.
One of my players, all right, I've got enough bad luck this season. I don't really need it. Nah, you do make some good points. I mean, I think the 25 obviously is important to look at, but I think there is a danger of maybe missing the short term because of the long term. Between now and game week 25, you've still got 2 or 3 transfers plus arguably -4, -8 if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
There is room to manoeuvre. I mean, you're only body swerving, I would say, 3 fixtures, which is United, Brighton, and Newcastle. So, providing you can get 10, at minimum 11 players, if you really can get 11 out, would be great. There is a real possibility that you'll be okay. So, do you? I get a little nervous where I think we were maybe thinking too far ahead in terms of transfers and trying to kind of plan weeks and weeks in advance when you miss out on the short-term players who are on form, scoring goals and creating chances. So in terms of negotiating sort of 25, I've just briefly touched on it. You mentioned a little bit about looking at maybe wildcard this week in terms of your own choices and what you're thinking. What would you say chip strategy is? I mean, I would obviously always hold 3 hit until later in the season, when there's sort of bigger blank game weeks when you can really maximise it. What's your thinking? Should people be using the wild card now? Should you be using, like you say, 3 hit for 25 to take this worry out of your out of the way? Like, what's your thoughts? Would you hold on as long as you can, or are you a kind of player that quite happily make the moment now and then worry about it later?
So, plan A, I think for me and a lot of managers, and what I would say before this, I would shout out to a video that FPL mate done, Dan, last week or the week before about chip strategy on his YouTube. That's really, really good. Anyone that's not really too sure what to do with the remaining chips, watch his video, because he really plans out a full calendar of all the remaining game weeks, where the blanks are, where the likely big doubles are, small doubles, where the Champions League weeks are, where the international breaks are, a lot of things that you can factor in. And it really helps you sort of see, all right, that's where I would play that, and then that would have an effect on that chip and stuff. So I think for me, the game week 25 is not big enough of a blank to free hit, although it's now a double game week and a blank with some teams doubling. The next big one is meant to be game week 28. I think that's meant to be the biggest potential blank game week. So I think that's when I would like to hold my free hit for. And then later in that, I can't remember the exact weeks, but I think ideally I would always want to play my wild card whenever there's a big double coming, roughly, to either have the wild card in place for the double, but then also have a bench boost for the double. So I'd like to be playing a wild card maybe the week before the big double game week, so then you can play a bench boost and attack it and try and have 14, 15 doublers, which is, I think, game weeks 33 and 34, something like that. So that's my plan A. I was wanting to do. The only reason I'm thinking about a plan B and potentially wildcarding now is just because of these, like when we looked at my team, these little fires. I'm thinking I can sort all these little fires, have a really good team for 23, have a good team for 25 without having to take any hits to swap about players, and then just have a bit of an eye on players that I want to keep. Downside to it is that we don't have the full lay of the land from sort of 26 onwards with the blanks and the doubles. So anything could happen and I could want it. So I'm really apprehensive about using it, and I don't think I will. I think I'll probably just do a free transfer and a -4 and just hope for the best. I think that's a sensible approach, but the knee-jerk in me is doing wildcard drafts. I've got like 3 drafts there, but I don't think I will do it, but it's tempting.
Yeah, what I would always say to you is I think like you sometimes maybe get caught up in optimization at every single point, and trying your best to have the optimum team every single time. But there are always going to be occasions where you're going to have like a less than optimal team that could still surprise you and still do the business. I think the important thing is to try and focus on getting to that sort of 85%, 90% range where you're happy, and leave it at that. I think if you tinker too much, you can miss out on short-term punts that are going to do you well. If you're maybe thinking too long, you're too template, you're not really, all you're doing is staying safe and treading water. You're not really like attacking and maybe getting those differentials in and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's important, although I would say it's important to definitely future-proof. Have a look at your planning and stuff. It's also important to remember that that's not the be-all and end-all. I think if there's always room to manoeuvre. You can always take a -4, which we don't always recommend, but it can be a useful reactionary tool if you need to. If you really think that you can get a player in that you're going to keep in your team for a couple of game weeks going forward, it's probably worth remembering that there is flexibility in that as well. I know it's different from you. Are we up in the heady heights of the gods? Are we up in the top, whatever? I don't know. What are you at, like 25k or something ridiculous?
6.
Well, the top 6k, well, obviously just ridiculous. It's important for you to maintain that, but if you're lagging behind like me, it's probably important to remember that you really want to be attacking little differentials and trying to find those gems. One of the things I was going to mention, and we haven't really spoke about before, is the eye test. And I remember that I'd watched quite a bit of Match of the Day earlier in the season when Matoma came on first as just a substitute for Ethiopian, I think it was. And I was blown away by his forward runs, his back and play. And I remember earmarking him at the time for FPL, and going forward, that really has now paid off, getting him in and stuff like that. But the same with March, like watching how Brighton had changed their formation and kind of catching that early is really important. So one of the things I definitely would say for anybody that's struggling a wee bit, try and watch as much football as possible, because the eye test is much more valuable than you maybe think it is. A lot of people rely on stats these days and form, but the eye test just gives you that little bit of early pre-warning about somebody that might be coming through that will do the business for you. I.e. Mudryk is probably a good example. When he came on, he looked sharp, pretty good. The last game's probably not a great example, seeing he was ill, but he definitely looked impressive, and I think going forward he'll be a real gem.
Hope so. I really hope so.
Cool. So unless you're getting else to add, I think we can probably leave it at that.
The only thing I think I'd like to ask quickly before we wrap up is who you captain this week? Is it Haaland? Is that no question about it?
No, I'm not sure. I think I'd like to go Arsenal, but the problem I've got is it depends if I get Saka in or not, which is what I'm probably aiming at. I think if I get Saka in, a real possibility that I might captain him, which is a bit kind of worrying, because obviously I still expect Haaland to smash them in this game week. Especially he's capable of scoring against anybody, and that Villa defence isn't look great. So yeah, but I think Saka's a great shout, midfielder. So you probably get the extra point if they get a clean sheet. He's still on penalties as far as I'm aware, so you get the penalty option, which is quite likely with that City defence and also that Brentford defence. And he just looks threatening every time he plays. He's always getting shots on target. He's always, his XG is always sort of up there, and his XA is pretty good as well, I'm sure. So I think that's where I'm leaning. I mean, Haaland obviously is your safe bet, but I think I'm going to go a little bit left field, maybe with Saka. I think might be my shout.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, man. Exactly the same answer, pretty much. Like I'm likely going to find a route to get Saka into my team. That's my priority. So then I'll be deciding between him and Haaland. It'll be depending if I want to go safe with Haaland or take the sort of gut punt. I think that's what I would call it. A gut punt. Doesn't sound very sexy, but it's not really a punt. But your gut feels like Arsenal are going to perform better in those two games, and Saka could be the one that gets the hauls. So I think I'd like to go with him, but we'll see. I need to figure out what I'm doing with this first. Back looking at it, and I'm like, but we'll see. Still got a couple of days.
I'm sure you'll be sharing it on Twitter anyway, and make sure people know where your team is and stuff like that. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with. But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Really enjoyed it. Hopefully, Man United get a solid win tonight. Rashford doesn't go mental. Shaw gets injured. Maybe Nonto scores, but De Gea gets 4 or 5 good saves.
A penalty save.
We'll see what happens. But yeah,
good luck.
Thanks for
good chats. Thanks for tuning in. I'll speak to you soon.